Here we are on the front of our Keystone Raptor Carbon Series. This is a toy hauler travel trailer. We're going to do a technical walkthrough in this unit just like your technician did with you on the date of delivery. Now your unit may vary with name brand on some of the appliances on here, and that's okay. If you want more information on your particular appliance or any of the other items on here, a deeper dive on technical info, diagnostics, or maintenance, you want to go to our YouTube channel for Great American RV and look for the helpful hacks section in our playlist, and we have a series of videos in there that give you much more information on a lot of these components. For now, we're going to go ahead and do our walkthrough and touch on some of the operation of these items. Now on the front, we'll start with our 7-way plug. Our 7-way plug ties into our vehicle we are towing with and provides us with lighting on our trailer based off of what we've chosen on our vehicle, our brake lights, our blinkers, our running lights, and so on. On here, we also have a charge line that will pull off the alternator of your vehicle to help keep the battery on the camper charged up while you're traveling down the road. We also have our breakaway cable. This breakaway cable has a little loop on it. You want to go ahead and get a latch and hook this to where you hook up your safety chains on your receiver hitch. And if the hitch were to ever fail on the trailer, this pin would pull out and it would activate the brakes on your trailer to stop it safely while it's traveling down the road. Next is our 12-volt jack here in the front. 12-volt jack operated off of that battery power up and down, and we also have a 12-volt light on here to help us hook up at night. In the event it is not working, we want to follow this wiring down here that will lead to our battery. We want to check our connections on there, and we also want to look to see if you have a blade fuse in line. Pull that blade fuse out, check it, see if it's good. And if it's good, then maybe we just have an issue with this, or our battery's dead, whatever the case may be. There is a way to override. We pull that little black plug off the back, we take our crank handle given to us with the unit, and we stick it on there, and we can manually operate that jack up and down in order to get it hooked up to our truck. Behind our jack, we have our dual propane tanks under this cover. We also have a dual propane auto changeover regulator. This regulator, we have a selector on there that we can choose one of our tanks. We start with that tank. That's where it's going to pull from whenever we're using LP. If that tank were to ever run dry, it will automatically change over to that secondary tank so we don't lose any propane during the operation. Now once that tank runs dry, you'll of course have to replace your tanks. It does give an indicator based on which tank you have selected, and if that indicator is red, then that means that tank is empty. You want to swap over to that other one so you can remove that tank and go get it filled while still being able to use that other one. Behind that, we have our battery box where we can store our batteries, and we also have our battery disconnect. That battery disconnect is used whenever we store our unit not plugged in. We don't want the battery to drain down, so we turn the battery disconnect off. Anytime we are plugged in, we want the battery disconnect on so we can charge that battery while we have it plugged in. Here on the driver's side of our unit, we have our pass-through access to our front pass-through bay. We have our smart solar charge controller right here. This changes our solar from our roof that we're getting from the sun. It changes into charging voltage for our battery system. Next to it, we have that solar panel disconnect system. That disconnect will shut down our solar charge controller system and disable the solar. Now, if we want to go ahead and we store our unit unplugged, we can have that solar charging and want that disconnect on. Even if we have our battery disconnect off in the front area, it will still charge your battery while you have that solar on. So it will help regain the power of that battery. If you leave that disconnect on, it's going to drain the battery on the unit. That solar is not going to be able to keep up unless you stack that unit with solar panels. So just keep that in mind. We want to go ahead and leave our solar on when we have access to sun and let it charge that battery up, and have our outside disconnect off. In here we also have our Lippert tire link system. This is so we can have a tire pressure monitoring system on here. It's already pre-wired for that sensor, and you can buy little sensors for the tires to add on there. That is an upgradable option. And lastly, in here we have our inverter prep. Pre-wired for our inverter system. An inverter will take your 12-volt power off of your batteries and change it to 110. We use this when we're dry camping. We want to be able to plug in cell phones into a 110 outlet or run a TV. We can use our battery power to do that for as long as it'll last, and we would have to purchase that inverter to install in there to have that opportunity. Next to it, we have our fresh water connection. Our freshwater connection, if we pull this cap off, we can install a hose and just fill it up off of a regular garden hose. This is for onboard storage for our water system. If we are dry camping, we were at a place where we don't have access to a water faucet, we can turn on our 12-volt water pump and pull out of that fresh water tank to supply water to our fixtures. Now, we don't want to put more than what we may use in that tank because, of course, it's a bunch of added weight to our trailer. So use the monitoring system on the inside to judge whatever level you may need. To drain this system, we have a pipe right under here. It's a blue pipe down here at the bottom, right behind our stabilizer jacks with a little valve. We open that valve up and that can drain the tank system on here. Now, we want to drain that whenever we're not in use. That way we're not leaving the water in there to become stagnant over time. Or if we're not in need of the water, we don't want to haul around that extra weight once again. We have our city water connection right next to it. Our city water connection is used whenever we do have water access at the campsite where we're at. We'll run a water hose over to here. We can put an inline filter in the system, plug it into here and turn that water on, and it will supply water straight to all of our fixtures on the interior of the unit. Here we have our outside shower, pretty self-explanatory. You have your shower fixture with your hot and cold. Up here we have our black tank flush hookup. This is to help flush out our black tank system for our sewage. We'll touch on that in a minute. And here we have our Girard tankless hot water heater system to give us on-demand hot water whenever we are in operation of it. Now down here we'll see our connection for our hose. We go ahead and hook our hose up here and we run it to our outlet at the campground or our dump station. And this is where we drain our sewage and gray water for our unit. We have a black tank and a gray tank. That gray tank is shower water or sink water. That's a pretty clean water, okay? We can leave that tank open all the time, signified by this gray handle right here. Leave that open. When we take a shower, run water in that sink, that water can run down into the dump station. Now for our black tank, however, signified by our black valve here on the side, we want to leave that closed. The reason being is that if we leave it open, the water will drain out of here, and any solids that are put in that tank from our toilet, it will end up hardening up and you'll never get it out of the tank, causing dry tank. That tank would have to be replaced by customer expense. So we want to leave that black valve closed, and we want to also leave some water in that tank, several gallons. That way none of that stuff solidifies in there. Whenever we are ready to dump, we have our hose connection hooked up, we pull that black tank valve and allow everything to drain out of that tank. When we're ready, we hook a water hose up to that black tank flush fixture up there, and there is a spraying nozzle in that black tank that will spray all the debris and whatever's left in that tank down towards this valve and help flush out that tank. Now, one thing we want to do after we are confident we have flushed out that tank and we're satisfied is close that black tank valve and allow several gallons of water to fill up in that tank. We can do that via that black tank flush, running it for 60 seconds or so, or we can just disconnect that and go to our toilet after we've closed our valve and hold that pedal down to add water to it that way. Under here we'll also notice a red and blue line sticking out of the bottom with some valves on it. That red and blue line are our low point drains. If we're prepping for winterization on our unit, we want to open those valves and drain the water out of our system. We have a lot more information about winterization in that helpful hack section. Moving further down the driver's side of our unit, we have our vent right here. This vent is for the vent over our range hood on the interior. If we use that to ventilate while we're cooking, we want to make sure that the latches are open so that little door can open and it can actually ventilate out. When we're storing our unit, we'll make sure those latches are closed. That way no insects or anything can build a nest in there. Here we have our furnace exhaust. This is our exhaust for our gas-powered furnace. It will get a little hot whenever we have that furnace operational. Down here we have another gray tank valve. This is for our secondary gray tank system for our kitchen area. Once again, we have that water hose hooked up and we have a dump station there at our campsite. We can leave that valve open all the time. Next is our 50 amp power supply. That power supply can be inserted by lining up your pins and twisting to the right, and then we want to tighten up that retainer ring on there. That way it doesn't fall out. In order to loosen your retainer ring, twist it to the left and pull it out. We want to make sure we're not plugged into shore power whenever we connect this. We want to wait, do that twist lock first, then plug into shore power. We also want to make sure that our AC system isn't on our unit so we don't cause any surges in our system. Up top, we also have our Lippert on-the-go ladder system. That Lippert on-the-go ladder bracket is set up for you to buy an extendable ladder. This ladder is sold by Lippert, and this is to gain access to your roof. Telescopic ladder can be stored easily in your front compartments, and that bracket is already there for it. This is to gain access to your roof. We need to get on our roof and check the sealant on it every 60 to 90 days to ensure that there's no peeling, scraping, cracking, or anything that can allow water entry into our unit. This is considered customer maintenance. If we're not doing this, manufacturers are not going to warranty any water entry in our unit. So just like changing the oil in your car, you want to check the sealants on your unit to make sure that it's good for years to come. We also want to check our rubber after trips and make sure no tree limbs scraped or dragged or poked holes in our rubber either. This would end up being an insurance claim. We want to get on top of that as soon as we can to make sure that we don't have any more damage to our unit. We also have sealant around our windows and our trim around the back and our lights. Anywhere where there was a hole put in the side of our unit, generally we're going to have some sealant around that too. Once again, every 60 to 90 days, you want to check that sealant for any peeling, cracking, or openings that can allow water entry in. Lastly, over here in the back corner, we have our cable outlet. This is if the park has cable, we can run a coax to that, and we would have cable on the inside when we scan for channels on our TV. So here on the rear of our unit, we are pre-wired for a backup camera up there at the top with our Keystone camera ready system. And then of course, we also have our toy hauler portion right here. So to open, we lift those handles, turn them, and then we can drop our door down. Now to load our toys, all we have to do is pull this pin out, and we can do that on each side, pull our cables off and drop this ramp to the ground and load up our four-wheelers or golf carts or whatever we care to do. If we want it to be a patio area, we leave that pin in right there. And we want to start with removing our pins here and here. And then we can lift up and we will repin them. On each end. Next, you have the Velcro straps right there, and then we can swing our arm out. Same thing on the other side. It's just the two pins at the bottom. We go ahead and release, flip it up, and then swing our patio out this way. To return it back to that position, lift it up, drop it down, and then unpin it. And we want to make sure that we put that Velcro strap back on here. We can do either the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter, just so long as it holds this from swinging when we lift that up from that hinge point right there. We also have a bug screen if we're hanging out on the patio. We don't want to let any insects in, whatever. We have that nice screen that drops down, clicks in. To release it, just give it a little pull, and we can return it back in the up position. When we go to close our door, we want to make sure that our cables are tucked in properly and not wrapped around our handle here. We go ahead and close our door, turn our handle to the right, and we lock it in on each side. This side, we turn it to the left and lock it in. Here on the passenger side, we have our pass-through storage bay there. And down here, we have our Lippert stabilizer jacks. We can see them from the other side. These are not meant to level out our unit. They're meant to stabilize our unit. So to level it out, we get those stacker blocks and we stack them up however much we may need and roll our tires up on that to level out our unit from left to right. And then our tongue jack will level it out from front to back. Then we drop these jacks down and we stabilize our unit. So we're just dropping them down to where they touch the ground and put a little bit of weight on them. If we try to lift our unit with them or we overextend them, then we are going to end up damaging them. They'll cave. They are not made to hold the weight of this unit. They're just simply meant to help stabilize it and keep it from rocking. So make sure you're using them properly so you don't damage them. And the other thing about them is they can be overridden. There's a 12 volt motor right here on this side. We can follow the fuse. It is a resettable breaker on there, But in the event that it's not working, we want to go to the other side and use the override on it, and we'll go over that information now. So here we are back on the driver's side of our unit, opposite of our motor in and our switch, and we have this handle. We can see this handle has a little slice in it, and it will line up with the post on that jack. We line it up, and we can manually run that jack up and down if we need to. So we also have our 12-volt powered awning under here to provide us with some shade. It is a sunshade only, not a rain shade. It is not intended to protect us from the rain, not intended to protect us from the wind, only give us some shade from the sun. So that means that if it begins to rain, we need to roll that awning in. If it's really windy, we need to roll that awning in. If we're going to be leaving our camper for an extended period of time, it's best to roll that awning in. If we don't take these precautions and we allow damages to occur due to wind or rain, then it will end up becoming an insurance claim, not a warranty claim. So keep that in mind. It can be quite costly to replace these sometimes, and it can also cause more damage to your camper if it rips off. So keep those things in mind. Take precautions, roll that awning in when in doubt. When the conditions are right to use our awning, we need to make sure that we are using it properly. We're still going to have AC runoff. Our AC is going to have some condensation on it when we're running it. So that water is going to drip off. Generally, it's going to drip to the side where the awning is. If so, it could end up puddling in the middle of this awning, and that awning could collapse and cause damage. We also have morning dew. Water is going to sit up on that awning. So a couple things that we need to do. We need to pitch our awning. So that means either pitch it to the back or pitch it to the front. Most people pitch it to the back because it's not up in this front gathering area. Really easy to do. You roll your awning out. Simply grab right here in this middle hinge point, pull it down. That's it. You've just pitched your awning enough for water to be able to drain off of it and not puddle in the middle of the awning and cause any damage. We always need to pitch our awning. Now when we're done camping, we're ready to roll it back up, just push it up, and we're done. Once again, back to its original position, hit our retract button and roll in our awning. On our entry door, we do have friction controlled hinges, so this keeps the door from slamming shut when the wind blows. So we'll feel some resistance on that door when we go to open and close it. We also have that screen door, comes unlatched from our main door, latches into our frame to put it back, release it from the frame, and hook it back to our main entry door. And we have our Lippard solid steps right here. In order to store our steps, lift them straight up. I always suggest pull that little lever right there to make sure that this latch goes around the frame and that it locks in properly. If you don't, you can be fooled by this door actually not being latched all the way and those steps can fall out. So make sure we give it a good little tug and we know it's locked in. In order for our steps to come down, pull that little latch and drop our steps down. Now, of course, make sure your entry door is all the way open so these brackets don't hit the frame and cause any damages to that or your screen door. Now, we want to make sure that we have our unit nice and level before we let our steps down. Main reason being is because next we need to level our steps. We have these knobs on the inside right here. When we're ready to level our steps, we just pull those knobs and we can adjust our legs up and down until we find that level spot that we like on our steps. We also need to be sure that when we close our entry door, we have clearance and we're not hitting the bottom frame of the door against the frame of the steps, and that our threshold is nice and even so we don't have any issues when we go to close that door. Here under our patio awning, of course, we have our outdoor speakers controlled by a radio on the interior in zone 2, and then we have an exterior cable connection for our outdoor TV, and we have a 110 receptacle right here for our outdoor TV. That 110 receptacle is GFCI protected. If it were to ever get wet and zap out, or if it tripped due to overload because too many griddles are plugged in or whatever the case may be, we're going to go to our main GFCI resettable breaker that's on the interior, and we'll show you where that is in a little bit. As we move down our unit, we have our spare tire located right here. You can see a bolt sticking out right there. That bolt, if we were to put our crank handle on it, is to lower our spare tire down. We do need to check that every now and again and make sure that it is good and tight before we hit the road, just to make sure that a system hasn't loosened up. We also have a quick connect for our LP connection. That quick connect is for a gas grill that we can purchase, and set up out here, and we can use the propane off of our tanks in the front. Finally, we have our LCI stabilizer jacks in the rear, just like our ones in the front. Stabilizers only, not levelers. 12-volt controlled with that override in the event something goes wrong, and extended and retracted with the push of a button. As we walk into our entry, we have our main control center right here. This control center will provide us with the meter for our battery, our fresh tank, our black tanks, and our gray tanks. Now, your unit may not have multiple tanks on it, so gray 1 and gray 2 and black 1 and black 2 are just standard for this type of control center. As you can see, tanks may vary by model, so we know that we don't have that many black tanks on our unit. Now here we have our water pump. That water pump is a 12-volt water pump that will pull water from that fresh tank system, our onboard storage for our water. When we are hooked to city water, we want to make sure that water pump is off. We don't want to turn it on unless we're using our fresh tank water. Our awning light controls our awning lights outside. Our lights 1 and 2 control our interior lights. We also have our awning retract and extend button right here. Below that is our Girard tankless water heater controller. We can turn it on with that on off button right there. We can change from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and we can change our temperature. That set temperature is what we want our water output to be out of that water heater. In order to operate, we'll turn our hot water on. Once we turn it on, we'll notice at the bottom right, it'll show a shower head icon. This lets us know that water is on somewhere in the unit on the hot side. On the left side, we'll notice a little fan. This means that the tankless water heater has initiated. And then finally in the middle, we'll begin to see a flame. Once that flame shows, that means that our system has lit and that it is heating the water. From there, we'll see how our temperature up top has changed from our set temperature to our output temperature. That output temperature will begin to rise, showing that our water is being heated to the desired temp. This unit only runs for 20 minutes at a time, so if you take a shower longer than 20 minutes or if you wash dishes longer than 20 minutes, it's going to shut off on you. In order to restart, just turn that hot water off and turn it back on, and it will reinitiate the system. Now, this is a gas appliance. I always suggest for things like this and the furnace to make sure that you bleed the air out of your propane system before operating. We'll go over that when we get to the range hood. Here we have our Furrion thermostat. This controls our air conditioner system in the living room area. We would hold that button down and it will eventually light up that display, and it would go ahead and initiate our AC system. We can see our first option we'll start with at that mode center is our cool option. We'll start with our cool option first. Our cool will cool the air throughout our unit. We of course set our thermostat to whatever point we want it to be, and we have our fan speed options. We have low and high. For low and high, that fan will run all the time. Now, whenever we want that fan to cut off, whenever the compressor cuts off, much like we likely do at home, we have it on auto. That system will shut off and on with the compressor. Our next mode is our heat mode. Our heat mode activates our gas-powered furnace on our unit. We choose our set point, and our heater will come on whenever necessary. There is fan speeds on here, but it does not change the fan speed on that furnace. It is a single fan speed on there controlled by the furnace board. Our next mode is our fan mode. Our fan mode simply circulates air throughout our unit without cooling it or anything. This will come out of our rooftop air, and we can just change from high to low to control that fan speed if we wish. That fan will stay on the entire time when we have it in our fan mode. Our last mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode is like a dehumidifier. We can choose our set point, and it will cool our unit down to that set point, and it will continue to cool past that, but alternate every 6 to 10 minutes off and on. That way it doesn't drop that temperature too low and freeze you out of the unit, but it still dries the air in your unit. Another thing to note with our furnace is that the air is going to come out of the vents on the floor. It's not going to come out of the rooftop air. Your only rooftop air is going to be your fan and your cool and your dry. Your heat will come out of those floor vents from the furnace. Along the floor line, right when you enter your unit, you'll notice our COLP detector. This warns us of any hazardous gases in our unit, and if it were to go off, we need to make sure that we're exiting our unit. We want to make sure we're also checking the buzzer on here once a month, holding down that button and making sure that we're hearing that chirping sound on it. And know that it is a 12-volt system. Without proper 12-volt power, this safety device is not going to work properly. We also need to check that 9-volt battery in our smoke detectors once a year as well, and make sure that it's working properly as well. We'll notice a series of vents located on the sidewall of our unit, low and high. This is a vent that can be opened up by just pushing that handle, squeezing the trigger, and this allows air to ventilate out, maybe while you're traveling down the road or whatever you wish. To put it back, squeeze that trigger and just pull it back to that closed position. We'll notice on our AC system right here, this is our ceiling assembly. Up here we have a screen that has a filter installed on it. That filter needs to be checked and cleaned every so often to make sure we're not restricting airflow on our AC. We'll also notice right here we have this dump valve. This dump valve is in the open position right now. This is to allow this one area right here to be cooled off a little bit quicker. You can open that up. If we close it now, the air will circulate through our ceiling vents right here all throughout the unit and that ductwork. So when we cool off the rest of the unit, we want to make sure that that is closed off. Otherwise, that air is not going to circulate through the rest of the unit. Up here, this little knob right here, we'll also notice this is our 4G LTE connection right here. We can purchase a router and upgrade that system to boost Wi-Fi at the campground, or get with a cellular provider and we can bring Wi-Fi with us wherever we go. In our kitchen area, we have our 12-volt operated fridge and freezer in here. We do have separate knobs for our settings in here on this one. And we need to keep in mind that in this system, whenever we are done using our unit, we need to defrost and clean out our freezer and fridge. When we defrost it, there's no drains up here for either one. That water is going to sit and hold in here. And if we go driving or moving our unit, that water is going to leak out and it's going to damage our wood components around that fridge. And it's not going to be warrantable. So we need to defrost, get a towel, lay it in here, soak that water up, and wipe everything down. This will also help reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew in either our fridge or our freezer whenever we store our unit. Leaving the doors open, cracked open too, to let it air out also helps. We do have a travel latch on our fridge. We want to make sure that we turn and put that in that travel position so nothing can fall out. We have our standard 110 operated microwave, and we have our hood range vent. Remember that vent outside I was talking about has the latches on it that you need to open and close in order for operation? Well, that's for that fan right there. So whenever we're cooking right here, we can ventilate out. We also have our 12-volt light right there as well. We have a glass cooktop cover. That cooktop cover needs to be opened in order to use our stovetops. When we're in travel, we want to go ahead and close it back up. That way it doesn't fall and crack that glass. In order to operate our stovetop, of course, our propane needs to be on. We want to pick one of the burners that we desire to use, turn it to high, and then we're just going to hit that ignite button until it lights. Once it lights, we want to let it run, get any orange poppy flame out of there, and just let it burn until we get that nice blue flame. Now, one thing that I talked about earlier with our LP system, our LP appliances, is we want to go to our stovetop and purge any air in our LP system. So if we have brought our unit out of storage and our LP was off, or if we've just changed the tanks out, more likely you're going to end up with air in your system. So it's best to go over to our stovetop here and ignite one of these burner tops and let it burn for about 30 to 60 seconds to make sure we're getting air that's out of that system. Now, it may not light right away if you do have air in that system. So if you turn that on, you want to keep cranking on this until it lights. That way you don't expel any unburnt gas into your unit, or use a long stem lighter right after you turn that burner on and just hold it there until it lights. Once it lights, 30 to 60 seconds, and you're just purging the air out, we get that nice blue flame and everything's operating properly. Then we can go over to things like our furnace and our tankless water heater system and operate those. This helps reduce the opportunity for either one of those items to fall into a fault mode. It also makes our oven a lot easier to light. So in order to operate our oven, we're just going to turn that knob to our flame position. We're going to hold it and push that down, and then we're going to hit that igniter button, or we can use that long stem lighter on there as well until it lights. Once it lights, we're going to see that flame down at the thermocouple, and we want to warm that thermocouple up for about 30 seconds, maybe longer. And then we can release that button and turn it to our desired temperature. When we do that, then we will see our burner light up, and it will begin to heat our oven once we close the door. We also have a little button right here on the side that can light everything up and also provide lighting in our oven. Here we have our mounting location for our TV. We also have our HDMI hookup that comes from our radio down below it. And we have a coax connection here and here. This one is for our antenna and our cable system. We see we have a little green light on here. That green light is for our antenna booster. It helps us pick up more antenna signal and pick up more channels in our area. So when we're on air channels and we're scanning for air channels on our TV, we want to make sure that's on. We want to turn it off when we're scanning for cable channels. This will prevent that 12-volt signal from scrambling any channels from our cable system. And we have our Jensen radio right here. Of course, we have our AM, FM, Bluetooth capability, and HDMI. We can plug that HDMI in here, and it will go run into our TV. Just like we talked about earlier, we showed you that HDMI cable. Zone A is our interior speakers. Zone B is our exterior speakers to control the volume and sound on those. We'll see our tie downs here in the toy hauler area. These are used to be able to tie down any of the toys that we have in the back, golf carts, four-wheelers, etc. We'll notice below our fridge we have this little box. This is where our 110 breakers and our 12-volt fuse panel is. If we have any issues with any 110 appliances, we want to come here. Any 12-volt components, we want to come here. Everything's labeled and organized properly, so it shouldn't be too hard to figure out what's what. Now we can see we have our bunk bed right here. Now, of course, if we brought our golf cart in here, it would be in the way. In order to get it out of the way, push on the front first, then push on the rear, and we can see it is in that stored position. We also have our safety pins right here we need to install right up there to keep that bed from dropping down while in travel. In order to get back in the sleeping position, we pull on that back strap right there and drop our bed down in the rear. Then we drop it down in the front. So we have the sleeper option back here in our bunkhouse area. In order to do that, we can flip that backrest up. We have our little landing legs right here. We pull that out, and then we can flip that sofa down on each side, and this makes a bed for us. To put it back, flip it up, push that pin down, and we can put our leg back and put our armrest back. Now, in order to get our golf cart, toys, whatever we have in here, we need to flip these up. So to do that, you grab a hold of the bottom, you slide it out towards the inside. We flip this up, grab the bottom of your sofa while straightening this piece out, and then we put it back up against the wall, and it drops down in that position. We have one more landing leg here. We can flip around, and then we can pull our toy in. We have our tie downs here to be able to hook up all our toys to bring that sofa back. A little bit trickier because we have to get the weight of the sofa, so it's easier to come from the bottom here, lift up, pull down. Want to get that leg down for the support, bring it down. We'd flip our sofa backing back and slide that couch back. That's it. Here we are in our bathroom. Our shower has our standard hot and cold fixtures there. Our shower head, however, has this button to be able to turn that shower head off or on. We use this when we're dry camping. We're trying to conserve the amount of water we put into our gray tank or the amount of water that we are using from our freshwater tank system. Now, in order to do that, we'll go ahead and turn our shower on, find that sweet spot for the hot water, get ourselves wet, and then we shut that shower head off, lather up because we're not using water during that period, and then we kick it back on, we're ready to rinse off. Now what this does is quick, easy access, shut that water off, but it also keeps us from having to fight and find that sweet spot for the hot water again. So just be aware that when you do kick it back on, turn it to the side because it will be a second of cold water before it gets hot. But you won't have to mess with the fixtures right there at the shower. Now we also have an exhaust here in our bathroom. It's suggested that you turn that on. Little 12-volt fan, open that up and let any steam and everything exhaust out of here. Reduces the opportunity for mold and mildew to develop. We have our standard RV toilet right here. This toilet has a foot pedal here at the bottom. We push that button and it will dump our system. Now, if we're doing number 1, just liquids, we can go ahead and just flush away. If we're doing number 2, solids, we want to hold that pedal down just a little bit and make sure that valve isn't open down there at the bottom, and we fill our bowl. That water will begin to come out. We want to fill that bowl up with water before we flush our solids. If we don't do that, that will cause clogging in our system. This makes sure that we have enough water to flush that down the drain and that it goes down into our black tank. Now, this is also going to be where we add our chemicals after we've flushed our system out, and we can also come here to add that extra water into our tank. In our bedroom, we do have a second AC system. This AC system is not going to work with our ductwork out there, so we want to keep this dump valve system open because this is where the air is going to come out to cool off our front bedroom area. We have our option for fan, which once again is just going to circulate air throughout our unit, and then we have cool, which will actually cool the air coming out of the unit, and then it tells you heat optional. Now, these units don't come equipped with that heat strip on there. If you wanted to add that, you could. And then of course we have our option for cold or colder for our thermostat right there. On the back side, we have that mounting location for another TV and our cable air antenna hookup, and as well as another GFCI protected outlet. Our bed does have storage underneath it if we were to lift it up, and we will notice that we have a GFCI outlet right here and right there on either side of the bed. Now, these GFCI outlets have 2 buttons on them. You're going to notice one says test and one says reset. Test, if we hit that button, it will turn off the power to all those outlets and basically trip it just like a regular breaker does. If the unit short circuits because of water, or if it's overamped because of too many griddles or blow dryers or whatever, it will automatically trip on its own. In order to reset it in either of these occasions, we just hit that other button, which is our reset button. Also, you will notice a little orange light right there in the middle that indicates that it is tripped, and that will bring us to that, of course, reset button, and it will go ahead and reset. Now, once again, there are 2 of them in here, one on each side of the bedroom. It will control multiple different GFCI outlets throughout this unit.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV SuperStores, where we bring the how-to you.